Welcome to the May session. Thanks for taking the time out of your calendars to join us. So, of course, always want to try to experiment and make things engaging. Often when we have the calls, if you're observing, whether it's work at home, on your phone, whatever it is, often there's content or contributions that, as attendees you want to make that either there isn't a space for it or the Zoom chat function doesn't work. And as we approach sort of the halfway mark in our convention that's coming just around the corner, I thought to kind of experiment a little bit with this AHA Slides. What it does is it allows you, not only through the course of the presentation, to ask questions, as the same as the Zoom chat could do. But what it does that's really kind of cool is we'll do an experiment. We'll ask a question, how you feeling today? Kind of an icebreaker style question so you get used to the tool. But the thing at the very end of our discussion today is I want to ask you that question of what are you thinking today that perhaps others in the business aviation industry are not thinking about? So we know the obvious issues like today are, and I'll go through the agenda about, our borders, our budgets, the dollars and the events as a theme. But what I really want to try to capture is as you think about the last half of the year, random issues that you're contemplating, things that kind of keep you up at night that maybe not a lot of people are talking about. One example that I think came up just recently that I would share is, the idea of aviation insurance and the conflict in Europe and rising insurance rates. That would be an example of something perhaps that you may want to come up with. But in the end, what it does is it helps us at the association really sort of quickly course correct. So we're definitely going to talk about the key issues, but I also want to give an opportunity for folks to contribute. So if you can, the way I would suggest it is that if you've got your iPhone or Android device, if you can, just scan that QR code and you'll be taken to the AHA slide. So you'll see your presentation as you see me right now and the deck itself. You'll see that, but then also you'll be able to follow along online through the phone, or is it another browser? Perhaps you'll open up like Google Chrome. You can open up and go to ahaslides.com/CBAA. So I'm seeing about 20 odd people in there, so about half, and that's perfect. And I see already sort of 3 thumbs up, so I appreciate for those that are there. You'll get to experiment with it. We'll play a little bit as we go along. There we go. So some more thumbs up. Thank you. So look, the agenda, as we talked about, borders, budgets, dollars, and events. Try to make it rhyme and come together. Definitely the things that we are focused on. And let's start first with this kind of question of the 23 that are now in the AHA slides. You've got about 18 seconds. Feeling great. It's almost a long weekend. I can't wait for that long weekend tour. Still feeling great. So kind of a loaded poll question because there's no negative answers. But with 5 seconds left, we'll kind of determine of the 24 of you that are able to contribute in AHA slides. Looks like the clear winner is definitely feeling great. So that's a good thing. So this just kind of gets us used to it. We'll go through a couple of the slides, but in the end, it's the brainstorm session. I'd encourage you to keep whatever it's your iPhone, Android device, or your browser tab open. Follow along there. It'll make it a little bit easier. So let's talk about the borders. Let's talk about the phone service. That's dominant, and it's something that I wanted to kind of open off with. So first, in terms of progress from our last session in April, we talked a lot about how we were engaged with CBSA about reopening airports. I told a lot of stories about just with the letter B, I could tell you which airports needed to be open. I'd always say Buttonville, Boundary Bay, and then I would say New Brunswick. So it's encouraging that CBSA reopened May 2nd and May 15th. I'm going to share some of you, one of the opportunities here is I'm going to share the links in our Zoom chat because I recognize that some of you will be on your iPhone, and historically, it's how you get that QR code information. So know that in the Zoom chat, the links will be available. I'll record the stuff and you can have it there. Why I bring this up here is that what we found already is that the lists that you'll find here on this QR code or in that link in Zoom, the list of airports that reopen for CBSA service May 2nd and then May 15th, not all of those airports are on the website that they have as the CBSA open ports for entry. So you're going to want to get this link. A great question came up on the Slack group, and forgive me, I forget the name of the member just at the moment as I'm thinking about it, but it came about Lethbridge. And Lethbridge is the perfect example where it's on the list here for reopened airports as of May 2nd for CBSA, but it is not on the website. So if you go to CBSA's website, which is the next link that we'll go to here, if you go to this website, in the chat we'll have the as well the link. This was the website that was updated by CBSA to show open airports for entry purposes. And as I use that Lethbridge example, it's on the press release that says May 2nd it's open for telephone reporting, but it has not yet made its way to that updated website. So that's a comment we've shared with CBSA, and they've committed to updating it. So for at least a period of time until you kind of get comfortable with it, I would suggest you probably want to keep those two links. So that's definitely the update from last session where we're going. The update about next steps, two sort of areas. I even have actually concluded a call before our check thrust today with Denny Vignette. So leading up to and over the last number of weeks and months, been steadily engaged with CBSA. The first is the TRC. So what I would share is that they've got this, I think it's this week, he said, new students. So they're returning border services agents that are like university students that are coming into CBSA. They're coming back online. They expect the marine ports to be reopening. So they expect TRC will be well staffed with those new agents that are coming on to handle both the marine traffic, our traffic, as we come into and out of the country. The future, I think, is super important. ArriveCAN is definitely going to be CBSA's future. You're going to hear it at our convention in June. Denny is presenting on the Thursday, the Static Day. And what's really encouraging is, and we talked about it in our Slack channel there, about how to best use ArriveCAN. And that is their vision for CBSA. They want a place where, as a crew member, you can load in, create the flight. Your passengers, as they complete, will soon be able to complete their declarations as well. So they'll be able to do that on their own. And their vision for ArriveCAN will mirror what our expectations are. In other words, there'll be less and less of a focus on actually calling into a telephone reporting center. And in so doing, you'll be able to just clear via the app and say, yes, in fact, the aircraft, I, the captain, we've landed Charlie Golf, whatever, at the airport at this time. They'll take a GPS basically position. They'll be able to validate that is in fact the case. And that's basically how they envision ArriveCAN assisting us going forward. So that's something definitely that's on the radar. I would say that CanPass corporate, like the CanPass True program, I've raised this again, that the way it worked, if you're familiar with CanPass corporate, even though there's a bit of a backlog right now, they're trying to work through for approvals for your passengers. But if you're an operator that has used CanPass corporate in the past, we want to get immediately back to that program where you arrive at that airport at that destination time. And if you look out and there's no agent around you, you're cleared. And we're using that and pushing that as let's take less pressure on the TRC. So what we have said is, and what they've committed to doing is providing, as we go through the summer, and especially with more marine traffic on, if we run into issues, we've had, and we've published, for instance, on the Slack channel, kind of like a call tree. You first, of course, call CanPass. Then there was the biz line. Then there's some alternate lines that you can use. And so they're going to develop a more targeted approach. They're right now, for instance, if you go to the CBSA website, you can't find, if you land at, let's say, Thunder Bay, you can't actually look up Thunder Bay port telephone information. And that would be of great help if you are an aircraft operator, you've arrived there, you called CanPass, nobody seems to answer. Your call is either routed to Hamilton or is to Montreal if you've selected the French option. But if you're on hold for a while, we should have the out to call the local office to say, look, I'm on the ramp here. It's summertime. It's hot. I've been closed doors for who knows how long. We need a clearance, and they are working on that path. So going forward, what I want to share is that Denny wants to create, as a result of some of our work, a bit of a operator focus calls. That would be something that would go monthly. So our first view is going to be June together, given that our operators will be in the room. You will be in the room in Toronto at the convention. We'll be able to ask the questions that you want to hear answers to. He's of course prepped to some of the issues. They're creating data points for us. I mean, I want to know how long our calls are taking, the frequency of dropped calls. How long did it take for somebody when they called in to then decide I'm dropping, and what's the average time of that? And then really paint a picture of the service levels with, in this case, CBSA. So a lot of work with CBSA underway. And I would say that they're definitely trying to do the right thing, but it's something that we are all in Canada. This photo sort of best describes it right now coming into Canada. Sorry, we're closed for business, it appears, right? You're seeing some of the CATSA lines right now and some of the press around the airports, the lineups, and it's everything from it's CATSA to get through security. It's CBSA when you arrive from a point internationally to filter through, and did people do their ArriveCAN? And if they didn't do the ArriveCAN, it's double the time with the a BSO, the Border Services Officer, for them to enter your information. So there's a lot of touch point there. And then you've got the CBP issue about pre-clearance down to the United States. So you're all seeing it. We are definitely communicating it, but it's something that we are really pushing to say that, look, if the government challenges here shouldn't be an us problem, it's a them problem. We need to get reopened here, and there's going to be a couple themes of that we'll talk about here. So let's talk about talking to the government. This photo for me best encapsulates that. I wanted to share. Earlier this week, the association, I had an opportunity to present or appear as a witness with the TRAN committee. And I'm going to include in the link. So here you'll find this to my LinkedIn, collectively associations, in an effort to kind of keep making sure that the message gets out there. I had the opportunity to talk a lot about, the issue was studying rural and urban airports and red tape and cost. And I really tried to, make the case that, especially in the COVID measures, what the issues and challenges that we experience with the government not reopening things. I talk about ArriveCAN. I talk about the delays with TRC. Talk about just some of the issues even with COVID policy, like taking a broader approach that when you think about small airports and how they're suffering right now with a lack of air service. I mean, on the one hand, this is it helps us make the time cost benefit, let's say. But on the other, for some of the airports and what that translates to in terms of our costs per landing and for the based operators, how those costs get passed on, is that status quo or the way things were in this challenged environment with airlines, what they call upgauging, right? Going from what was a 1900 and 19 odd seats to a Dash 8 300, and maybe let's call it 30 odd seats, 35 seats. Now you got a Q400 that's 75 seats. These small communities just can't support that. And then you have a COVID policy on the vaccination, right? Like you've got still 4 million Canadians who, for whatever reason, chose not to get vaccinated, but that prevents them from being a customer on our aircraft and on the airline's aircraft. And so if we're talking about recovery, what came first, chicken or egg here, right? It's these kinds of things. So that presentation is our attempt to really call out some of the issues that are there and put on record with the government the issues that we and you are experiencing in the industry. So let's continue on there. Hopefully you'll find that interesting and continue or consider sharing that with some of the folks. Let's talk about the taxes, in this case, the luxury tax. I wanted to kind of share the update. So, you've heard me say it's not done in the sense that there's still an opportunity to influence the way this draft legislation gets decided. And I wanted to share with you some of those examples from the transcript. So yeah, I get to watch them and interface and connect with the MPs and talk about the issues so that they're, armed with the information. But I wanted to share with you some of the the key issues and ones that I found that are still surprising. So the first here is from an MP with the block, Gabriel St. Marie. He asked the question about job losses and economic impact. And it's clear that The government has not done that type of assessment, an economic impact analysis, which may seem surprising. They say that they've conducted and consulted with industry, and yes, we have petitioned them. Bombardier's there's a whole host of folks that have said this is the wrong thing to do. And so it's great to see that this question is being asked, because it results in the Parliamentary Budget Office being asked by Ed Fast of the Conservatives to conduct this economic impact analysis. So this is just one of the points here on the question directly. Going to another one, MP Adam Chambers. This one I found surprising because of what the government answered about how they view the percentage of revenue collected on luxury tax. So if you scan to the bottom of that red line, they believe 70% of the revenue. Remember, this is they're anticipating something like $128 million a year in revenue from luxury tax. They think that 70% is going to come from cars, 20% from boats, and apparently 10% from aircraft, which is surprising because if I didn't include the old photo from April's session, but if you recall that kind of old airplane, I mean the discussion that you can't find anything after 2018 that isn't under $100,000. So this was kind of surprising. They believe that basically $12 million a year, the job losses that are associated with $12 million a year in revenue, this is no benefit. I didn't have an opportunity to include a slide here, but I included on the association's social media, and then as well as mine, a letter that was published yesterday in the Financial Post from the IAMAW, just talking about luxury tax and the jobs that are impacted. So again, if you haven't done an economic impact study and you somehow believe that only 10% of the total revenue is going to come from aircraft, why exactly are we continuing to do this? So it's an important thing. Last is this conversation again with Ed Fast, and this is the really, again, making the point about the Parliamentary Budget Office and really taking this step that they need to understand the economic impacts. And it's interesting that the bottom line, perhaps you can't read it or see it. Hopefully, if you're on the device, there's 12 in the AHA slides and the balance that are in the Zoom room. I wanted to point out that one of the responses from the government was on the case of the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Office. They said their note when they costed the luxury tax said there would be a behavioral impact. That's the idea of tax. Governments their only job is to create incentives, either incentives to do the right thing or incentives to do what they think is the bad thing. And in this case, they said they're not sure of what the behavioral impact would be. Because it's uncertain. So in other words, introducing the luxury tax, it's designed to change your behaviors, but they don't really know what that behavior is going to do. It's uncertain. So again, when we think about and when we call on your support for whether it's letters, reaching out to your MPs, this is really one of the reasons why, is that we want to continue to let them know that this is not a direction they should be pursuing, that this is not worth the revenue they think they're going to get. And that's why so many in our industry have come together to petition against this. So that's sort of the latest on luxury tax. Let's go to the salary survey, and I am going to include this link as well for the Zoom chat. So let me just put that in there. In the same way that now we're talking about the dollars, let us help you. I mean, it's been some time since we updated our compensation survey, and so there's still an opportunity to submit that data. Know that again, we've sort of redrawn the flow of the survey to not only make it easier to provide what is core data, base compensation, any sort of quick bonus structure, how things are, so you get really to the meat of the matter. Then there's an opportunity if you follow that link, that about, let's call it not even halfway, you have the opportunity to either forward the balance of the survey to some of your HR professionals if you have them in the organization, or if you want to provide some of that information. It's not overly complex, but it sometimes gets into the details, and either you're prepared to answer those questions or you're not. So we try to make it really easy to get that core information, because as we look around, HR and HR strategy are going to be critical. Everywhere you look, folks are hiring. And I think if you're doing the right thing, compensation is but one element of a reason for an employee to stay. But if, I've used that line before, it's IQ, EQ, and LQ, right? There's more to just paying people the right. It's also about recognizing the value they contribute, the life balance that they want to have, the opportunity that they have within your organization. And so the CBAA compensation survey is us helping you sort of benchmark and allow you then to build on how you feel is the best way to retain and attract the talent that you need to power the business. So that's the comp survey. I'm also looking at the question. So know that if you're on the AHA slides, if you leave your phone or if you leave the browser, it'll drop. So I see 12 of you there. I see no questions there, no questions on Zoom. So I'll just keep going. And it is just me today, so hopefully that works. So we'll continue along here. Talk a little bit about the convention, the events. Thanks, David. I see that your thumbs up just went there. Thanks. So the convention, definitely a huge opportunity, right? I mean, June 14 to 16 in Toronto. There's a lot coming together. The team has been working really hard. The contributors, we have got some updates like Brian Schul. If you've heard the story about the SR-71, about the speed check in I think it was around LA Center. Maybe it is him, maybe it isn't. You'll have to come and find out. But Brian is coming to be our lunch leadership session. Hope Air, of course, the association's been such a supporter. You have been a supporter of Hope Air, and I think that is a fantastic union, let's say, between our association and the charity. And so we're obviously doing the golf tournament. We are developing the website. Basically just an opportunity. You'll see in our social media that you can either choose to donate if you're not able to golf. If you are, there's an opportunity to donate some dollars and kind of recognize the sponsors that are there as well, because that's almost separate and apart from some of the convention. We want to recognize the folks that are also there at the golf. Fun night at Spin. If you've never played ping pong before, well, this is going to be a fun chance. But if you look up the Google reviews for the place, and it's surprising to me, actually. I'll be honest. When we review all the options that are available, you want something that like a diverse group of people will enjoy. There's great music, some beverages, good food, and there's an opportunity for a little camaraderie, a little bit of sport, a little bit of competition. And I think every Google review that I've read on Spin is fantastic. So hopefully you'll consider also attending. So on balance, it's a great opportunity for us to get together. I know that you are all very busy, but I think this is a chance for us to really kind of get together, get aligned, influence the folks we need to influence. You'll hear from those, but we'll really kind of find the issues that matter. And I think the convention is a great opportunity for that. So we got a couple slides just on that piece, and I'm going to include this link here as well, just in the chat that you can kind of navigate through. But of course, the static sold out. So a number of aircraft, we're looking to find additional space, let's say. But the static is sold out with 16 aircraft. The exhibitors in a great place. So there's still some sponsorship opportunities. And what I would say to you as an operator, I mean, every convention goes through the same thing, is the hotel block rates. So right now it's extended till May 23rd. So just let's say 4 days away. So hopefully you can get this done before the long weekend. But if you do, you'll block the rate and ensure that, that travel's easy. Even though the convention, I mean, everything from Royal Woodbine Golf Course is where we're at. It's literally just around the corner. And then of course, Sky Services South facility, literally again, just around the corner. So in terms of convenience, the convention hotel is just easy. You'll be able to just walk through the building, get it done, and then it's easy transport around when you're doing the different events. So let's go then to registration. So again, operator members, just a reminder that as members to the association, there is a complimentary code. So if you're looking to sort of average out your price for attendance, the benefit, of course, is to share as much as you can with some of the team, especially on the education sessions. And so this complimentary coupon is available to operators. And I definitely think, our focus, especially when you're the GTA, one, it's easy to travel in. The airlines, they basically all connect into Toronto at one point or another. And then, of course, the surrounding area, whether it's the KW, Hamilton, Oshawa, Buttonville, the crowds. So there's a great opportunity for us to connect there, and you can see that link here. So to our convention sponsors, this is just a quick link to those names, and we really appreciate their support. And again, our golf will be built out on the golf website, but again, to those and to our convention sponsors, really appreciate it. So as we go along, this is the next part where I kind of want to capture your feedback. So I'm going to go a little bit slower in case you've dropped off on the AHA slides. There's 14 right now that are there. So again, you can either go to probably ahaslides.com/CBAA. We'll do this little brainstorm exercise with the group here, really to kind of gauge this question of what is something that you're thinking about that others in BizAv aren't right now. And, again, what I'm trying to do here is to pull out the issues that so often you're focused like COVID, CBSA, luxury tax. Around the corner is, of course, next year. Well, what about the ADSB and the mandates? How prepared are you for that? Think of, you've heard us talk about the CVRs and recorder independent power supply and the requirements to change in May. Are you ready for that? So those are some of the issues. I've talked about insurance and aviation. So there's an opportunity if you're in that chat there. Now we're peaking up there. We have 63 participants in the Zoom and 19 in the AHA slides. So if there's a chance, definitely. There we go. Oh, and thanks, David Mann, already for the first one. I'm seeing ADSB secure encryption. Absolutely. It's interesting on this side. So what we'll do is we'll take about the next 2 minutes or so. And as I'm sort of talking, that folks can kind of raise in some of their points here. And I'm just going to take a look. I see a question that I'm going to add on here. 2 ideas are raised. Perfect. So we'll take about 2 minutes here to bring that on. But on the matter of ADSB encryption, today, in fact, with Denny Vignette, we talked about, it's interesting. He mentioned that CBSA frontline officers at the ports, when they gauge when they should send their officers out, he'd mentioned that, they use like public available tools. And he just kind of made it as a casual comment. And what he said, he's like, we'll go to FlightAware and we'll look up the aircraft. And right away I thought, anytime you kind of run into like, why are the agents not here? Like, what is going on here? And I asked him, well, do you have the block level access? Like if you're an organization that has a block, never mind the ADSB side, I'm just kind of riffing into that area. How are you doing that? And so that's just an interesting little side note that we just unpacked today. And I want to help them understand not only the ADSB side and how, you can track anybody. I can track the Prime Minister's travel, the Air Force, etc. Or if you recall in Ottawa, when they had during the trucker protest, they had aircraft overhead on some military exercise. Well, how that was discovered with ADSB data when you're looking and seeing orbiting aircraft just constantly flying in like a holding pattern. So this is definitely, and so I appreciate some of those that have come in. So in the end, we probably won't do the vote, but I'll just kind of go through it. Service levels, BC talked about service levels that are getting longer, more frustrating everywhere, it seems. And that's a line that we absolutely keep pressing. I use why accept government mediocrity, right? Now, this is not an us problem, it's a them problem, and they need to recognize. And there's a line that people have used in past about, are we creating toll booths? Or are we creating spark plugs, right? Are we trying to make this industry excel as a country? I raised in the that Tran appearance, and to this point, Canada ranks 107th of 170 countries in terms of price competitiveness. And 2 of the 4 things that make up that score are tickets and taxes and fuel prices. And so 107 of 170, that's Canada. And then we're 40th in terms of promotion of travel and tourism. And this is taken from the World Economic Forum, a study they did about travel comparatives in 2019. So those stats, 107 of 170 and 40th, that's before COVID. Never mind after what we've all gone through and what we continue to deal with is immediately getting to a place where we're moving forward. And he brought up the next downturn. Yeah, like what is global inflation? So perhaps those are tied together. And absolutely, how do we plan and prep for that? Whether it's something from a health standpoint or just economic, as we're all sort of teetering on the edge, and what's happening in Europe and all the challenges that are going on there. So I appreciate some of that input. Perhaps what we'll do with certainly with the convention, I want to start to integrate some of this to make it easy to engage. I mean, like you, I've attended many conventions and I sit in the audience and maybe it's getting that question or getting that point. But what we're trying to do here is to make sure that I am aware of what you're thinking about. I've shared a little bit about some of the ideas, whether it's that insurance component, the efforts, for instance, Andy had undertaken with ESAN to attend on our behalf with the government day on the Hill. I happened to be away at the BCAC conference, hosting and closing their conference. And they had an opportunity to chat with, I think it was about 70 MPs and staffers and represent, business aviation. And the great thing is that, it's crazy to think that in the 4 years that I happen to have been in this role, the last two have been all about COVID and everything else. But what's great is the progress we're making on your behalf, influencing government. In other words, they are getting to know more about what we're doing, how the unique elements come to play. And I think it's something that we definitely want to see going forward, and something that we're going to continue our efforts in. So no unanswered questions. So with the time we've got, I'm going to probably return it back to you. Unless there's from the Zoom chat or audio function, I'll probably return back the time. But that is the briefing that we've got on the borders, the budgets, the dollars, and the events that are upcoming. I definitely hope to see you at the convention. That's going to be critical for us as an organization and an association, members coming together. Very encouraged by the government attendance, the participants that you're going to hear from, and then as well the education session, the content that we're going to try to deliver to you. I mean, especially on the environment, about HR strategies, all of these things are very timely. The luxury tax, the equipment changes, like there is so much. I happen to see Greg McDougall of Harbour Air. I'm going to be in a chat with him talking about electrification of Harbour Air's fleet. How do they make the business decision on that? So there's going to be some great content. Hope you'll agree to that and come out and join us in Toronto on the 14th to the 16th of June. So with that, and looking, no questions in the AHA slides. And Dave, appreciate that, Dave. Thanks for the invite and the ability to participate with the conference. With that, then, everyone, enjoy the long weekend. And we will be connecting in June. We'll probably forego the Check Thrust session in June because we'll be at the convention. But stay tuned for July and beyond. We're bringing on some NAV Canada components. We're talking all about data, and more specifically, regional airports or rural and urban airports, business aviation's impact on rural and urban airports. So NAV's going to be there. And we are going to have a stand-up meeting with, let's call it a selection of air operators. So folks that on this call with CBSA, so that we are getting them real-time information about the issues that you're experiencing, so that they really kind of make action on our parts, that we don't continue to accept this sort of mediocrity. Let's make sure that we're building these spark plugs for what we do, so that we're not holding back. So with that, take care, everyone, and we will chat again in June at the convention.